The Qualari scout ship called Eternal Light floated in the empty darkness of space. Its once shiny hull was now covered with small dents from tiny space rocks and damage from the harsh light of strange stars. Inside the ship, things were quiet, except for the soft beeping of machines. Commander Zetharel stood without moving in front of the main window. All four of his thin arms were folded against his chest in a way that showed he had lost hope. His skin, normally a healthy blue-green, had turned a dull gray from stress and lack of proper nutrition. "We have finished our calculations, Commander," said May Allen, the navigation officer. Her voice shook slightly with fear that all members of their species could hear. "We are about 12,700 light-years from any place on our maps. Our main engines still do not work. We only have the small emergency thrusters." Zetharel blinked his inner eyelids to show he understood. The quantum jump drive had broken in the worst possible way. It had thrown their small research ship far beyond the edges of known space. The life support systems were failing. They did not have enough power to make a jump back home. The crew of 27 faced a slow, certain death. "What about communications?" he asked, even though he already knew what the answer would be. Tor Leth, the communications officer, shook his head. "We are still sending messages on all channels, Commander. We are even using the old radio waves that no one has used for hundreds of years. But even at the speed of light, our call for help would take thousands of years to reach any world with people on it." No one spoke after that. The Qualari had mastered faster-than-light travel 300 years ago, but they had never gone this far into the unknown. Out here, there was no quantum relay network that allowed instant communication across the Galactic Alliance. "What, about the star system nearby?" Zetharel asked. "Are there any planets where we could live?" Science Officer Vrenke looked at his instruments. "There is one world in the zone that might support life, Commander. The air has oxygen and nitrogen, but our scans show no signs of advanced technology or ships. If there is life there, it would be very simple." Zetharel unfolded his arms and stood up straight to his full height of nearly 7 feet. "Set a course for that planet. We have enough power to get there. Maybe we can find resources to keep our life support working longer, if nothing else." None of them said what they all knew. This would only delay the end. The Qualari were a social species that evolved from hive dwellers. The thought of dying alone so far from the warmth of their civilization was almost as scary as death itself. Medical Officer Jalquin entered the bridge, holding a data pad. "Commander, I need to speak with you about our food supplies." Zetharel followed Jalquin into the small meeting room just off the main bridge. The medical officer's antennae were drooping, a bad sign. "Our protein synthesizers are operating at only 12% efficiency," Jalquin explained. "Even with strict rationing, we have less than 40 days of food remaining." Zetharel felt his 4 hearts beating faster. "What about the hibernation chambers? I've prepared 5 of them, but each requires significant power. We could preserve maybe a quarter of the crew, but we would need to choose who lives and who dies," Zetharel finished. "That is not a choice I am prepared to make. Not yet." Back. On the bridge, Engineering Officer Pelthar was waiting with more bad news. "Commander, the quantum core is showing signs of instability. If we don't find a way to balance the matter-antimatter reaction soon, we could face a cascade failure." "How long do we have?" "Hard to say. Days, maybe weeks." Pelthar's mandibles clicked nervously. "I've diverted all non-essential power to the containment fields, but it's a temporary solution at best." Zetharel looked around at his crew. They were the best the Galactic Alliance had to offer. Scientists and explorers chosen for this mission because of their exceptional skills and adaptability. Now, those same qualities would only let them fully understand the hopelessness of their situation. "Begin preparations for landing on the 3rd planet," he ordered. "May Allen, find a location away from any native life forms. Vrenke, run full atmospheric analysis. We need to know if we can breathe the air without filters." The crew moved with purpose, grateful to have tasks to focus on. Zetharel watched them work, feeling the weight of command more heavily than ever before. He moved to the communications station where Torleth was still sending their distress call into the void. Any unusual signals from the planet? Nothing artificial, Commander. Just the normal background radiation and some atmospheric, electrical discharges. If there are intelligent beings down there, they're pre-industrial at best. Zetharel nodded. Keep broadcasting our distress call anyway. Yes, Commander. Though I don't understand why. No one can hear us. Zetharel placed one of his 4 hands on the younger officer's shoulder. Because we are Qualari Torleth, we do not give up until the very end. It is protocol, but it is also who we are. As the eternal light moved slowly toward the unremarkable yellow star and its 3rd planet, their distress signal continued to pulse outward through the empty darkness. The message was simple. Help us. We are lost. We are dying. Anyone who hears this, please help us. It was a call into nothingness, a desperate hope with no logical foundation. In all the long history of the Galactic Alliance, no distress call had ever been answered by an unknown species. The vastness of space made such a rescue impossible. The timing would have to be perfect, the technology compatible, and the rescuers would need to be willing to risk themselves for total strangers. In short, they would need a miracle. The blue-green planet grew larger on their view screen. Soon they would land and begin their final chapter as a crew. They would explore, document, and learn everything they could about this world, even if no one would ever read their findings. It was what they were trained to do. None of them could know that, light years away, something impossible was about to happen. Their signal, weakened by distance but still detectable by the right equipment, was about to reach the sensors of a ship belonging to a species the Galactic Alliance had never encountered, a species that, against all logic and probability, would choose to answer. Captain Alan Parker of the USS Horizon sat in the quiet of his small office, looking at the stars through the viewport. The Deep Space Survey ship had been traveling for almost 6 months now, mapping uncharted regions far beyond where any human vessel had gone before. The ship was testing the new quantum fold drive, a technology that allowed them to bend space and travel incredible distances in short times. Parker was 52 years old with gray hair cut short and deep lines around his eyes from years of looking at stars. He had spent most of his life in space. When he was younger, space travel was slow and limited. Now humans were finally able to reach far beyond their solar system. It was an exciting time to be alive. The soft chime of his door pulled him from his thoughts. "Come in," he said. Lieutenant Samantha Wright, the ship's sensor specialist, entered with a data pad in her hand. Her face looked strange, a mix of excitement and confusion. "Captain, I think you need to see this," she said, handing him the pad. Parker looked at the readout, then looked again. The data showed a signal pattern, weak but definitely not natural. "How long have we been receiving this?" he asked. "Just over 3 hours, sir. The new deep space array picked it up. It's very faint, but the pattern is clear. It's an artificial signal." Parker stood up. "Bridge. Now." 5 minutes later, the senior crew of the Horizon gathered around the main sensor display. The signal pattern pulsed across the screen in steady waves. "Play it," Parker ordered. Communications Officer Kevin West pressed a button, and a strange sound filled the bridge. It wasn't random noise. It had structure, patterns that repeated. It was unmistakably a message, though not one they could understand. The UI signal is coming from the Cygnus 47 system about 2 light years from us, Wright explained. It's using frequencies we don't normally use, which is why we almost missed it. Science Officer Linda Morris, a tall woman with short black hair, was studying the data with intense focus. "The pattern matches what we would expect from a distress call. See these repeated sequences? They're too regular to be anything else." "Could it be from an old human probe? Something we forgot about?" asked Security Chief Maria Flores. Morris shook her head. "No human vessel has ever been in that region, and the signal structure is unlike anything in our database. This is not human technology." The bridge went quiet as everyone realized what that meant. In nearly a century of space exploration, Humans had found plenty of evidence of life on other planets, bacteria, simple plants, even some small animals. But they had never encountered another intelligent, spacefaring species. Until now. So we're looking at a distress call from an alien ship? Navigation Officer Jack Wilson asked, breaking the silence. That's what the data suggests, Morris replied. And based on the signal degradation, they've been broadcasting for some time. Parker walked to the main viewport, looking out at the stars as if he might somehow see the source of the signal with his own eyes. Options? He asked without turning around. We could continue our survey mission as planned, Flores suggested. Send the data back to Earth and let them decide what to do. That would take weeks, Wilson pointed out. If it really is a distress call, they might not have that long. Or we could investigate ourselves, Morris said. The Cygnus 47 system is within range of our fold drive. We could be there in 3 days. Could be dangerous, Flores warned. We don't know anything about whoever sent this. Parker turned back to face his crew. These were the moments that defined a captain. The mission orders gave him the freedom to make this call, though no one had actually expected such a situation to arise. What's the status of our fold drive? He asked Chief Engineer Paul Gonzalez, who had been quietly listening from the side of the bridge. Fully operational, Captain. We have enough fuel for the jump to Cygnus 47 and back to the nearest outpost with some reserve. Parker nodded slowly. He had joined Space Command to explore, to push the boundaries of human knowledge. But more than that, he had joined to uphold the values humanity had finally embraced after centuries of conflict on Earth. One of those values was simple. You answer a call for help. Set course for Cygnus 47, he ordered. Maximum sustainable. Fold. Captain? Flores looked concerned. Shouldn't we at least notify command first? We will, Parker said firmly. But we're not going to wait for a response. Someone out there needs help, and we're the only ones who can provide it. That's all I need to know. The bridge crew moved to their stations, a new energy in their movements. They were about to make history one way or another. Send a message back to Earth, Parker added. Tell them we've received what appears to be a non-human distress call, and we're responding. Include all our sensor data and the signal itself. Tell them we'll maintain communication as the situation develops. Yes, Captain, West replied, already composing the message. And begin working on possible ways to communicate with whoever sent this, Parker continued. Dust off the first contact protocols. I want options by the time we arrive. As the horizon changed direction, its powerful engines warping the fabric of space itself, Parker felt a mixture of excitement and anxiety. Humanity's first encounter with another intelligent species would happen under his command. The weight of that responsibility was enormous, but so was the potential. This could be the beginning of a new chapter in human history. Captain? Right, called from her station. I'm picking up more details from the signal. There's a pattern here that, well, it almost seems like counting. Basic mathematics. Morris moved to look over Wright's shoulder. She's right. Look at the groupings of pulses. This could be the foundation of a translation matrix. Good, Parker said. That means they're trying to be understood. Keep working on it. The main engines hummed as the fold drive prepared to activate. In moments, they would be traveling faster than any human had ever gone before, racing to answer a call that had crossed the stars. Parker looked at his crew, all focused on their tasks, all part of this historic moment. Whatever we find out there, he said quietly, we go with an open hand, not a closed fist. Remember that. The stars outside the viewport suddenly stretched into long lines as the fold drive engaged, carrying the human ship toward an encounter that would change everything. The Qualari ship Eternal Light orbited the blue-green planet in silence. The crew had settled into a grim routine. They took careful samples of the planet's atmosphere, studied its surface, and prepared for what would likely be their final landing. Their food supplies dwindled, and the ship's systems showed more warning lights each day. Commander Zetharel was in his quarters, recording what might be his final log entry when the alarm sounded. Commander to the bridge, immediately. Torleth's voice came through the speaker, filled with an emotion Zetharel couldn't identify. When he reached the bridge, he found the entire crew staring at their instruments in disbelief. "What is happening?" Zetharel asked. "Something is approaching, Commander," Torleth said, his mandibles clicking rapidly. "Moving at speeds we thought impossible. It appears to be folding space itself." "That can't be," Zetharel replied automatically. "No known species has mastered space folding. The energy needed would be—" "It's slowing down," interrupted Vrenki from the science station. "Coming out of fold now, about 300,000 kilometers away." The main screen activated. At first they only saw the black of space. Then, a small point of light appeared. It quickly grew into a ship unlike any they had ever seen. It was smaller than their own vessel, maybe 1/3 the size. It had a central tube shape with 2 large engine parts on the sides. The hull was a bright white-silver color that reflected the starlight. "They're sending us a message," Torleth reported, his antennae shaking. "Simple radio waves carrying some kind of picture and sound." "Show it on screen," Zetharel ordered. His 4 hearts beat faster than normal. The screen changed and they saw them for the first time. 2-legged creatures with flat faces, small eyes, and strange fur on the tops of their heads. One of them, wearing clothes with extra marks, stepped forward and spoke. Its mouth moved in strange ways. No one on the bridge could understand the words, but the meaning was clear enough. These beings had heard their call for help and had come to offer aid. The bridge erupted in a chaos of clicking mandibles and vibrating antennae, the Qualari way of showing great surprise. "They heard us?" May Allen asked in disbelief. "Across thousands of light years?" "No," Vrenki said, looking at the data. "Based on how our signal has decayed, they must have been relatively close when they picked it up. These aliens must have amazing sensor technology." Zetharel raised a hand for quiet. "More importantly, they came. A species we've never met before heard our distress call and changed their journey to help us. This idea was hard for the Qualari to understand. Their own people would never risk such a meeting without months of planning and approval from the Galactic Alliance Council. "Should we answer them, Commander?" Torleth asked. Zetharel looked at the alien face on the screen. There was something in the way it held itself, something in its eyes that touched him in a way he couldn't explain. "Yes," he said finally. "Send visual and start first contact methods and Torleth, thank them." On the human ship horizon, the bridge crew watched as the alien vessel sent back its first response. The screen filled with the image of an insect-like being with 4 arms, a blue-green exoskeleton, and large compound eyes. "Recording and analyzing," Science Officer Linda Morris said quietly, her fingers flying over her console. The alien being made a series of clicks and humming sounds. A complex pattern of lights flashed below the image. "I think the lights are a mathematical sequence," Communications Officer Kevin West said. "Look, there's a pattern here that matches our number system. They're trying to establish a common language." Captain Parker nodded. "Send back the same sequence to show we understand, then begin the translation matrix." For the next 6 hours, the 2 ships exchanged simple messages. They started with basic mathematics, then moved to simple shapes and concepts. The universal translation matrix that the humans had brought began to build a basic understanding of the alien language. "It's working faster than I expected," Morris said with excitement. "Their language has some similarities to formal logic structures. That helps our computer make connections." Finally, Parker stood before the camera again. "I am Alan Parker," he said slowly. "Captain of the Horizon. We are humans from the planet Earth. We received your distress call and have come to help. Can you understand me?" There was a pause, then the alien commander responded. The translation was rough with many words missing, but the message came through. "I am Zetharel, commander of Eternal Light. We are Qualari. Your arrival is unexpected. We believed no help possible." Parker smiled. "We're neighbors now, Commander Zetharel, and neighbors help each other. We would like, come aboard your vessel," Zetharel's translated voice said. "Is this acceptable?" Parker looked at his senior officers. This was moving fast, but there was no protocol for how first contact should proceed. They were writing the rule book with every decision. Our atmosphere is oxygen-nitrogen, Parker said. Will that be safe for you? Yes, came the reply. Qualari can breathe your air. We have similar needs. Then we would be honored to welcome you aboard, Parker said. We'll send coordinates for docking. As the communication ended, Security Chief Maria Flores approached Parker. Sir, are you sure this is wise? We know nothing about these beings. We know they were in trouble and called for help, Parker replied. And we know they're willing to talk. That's enough for now. But what if they're dangerous? Parker finished for her. They could be, but they could also be the beginning of something amazing. First contact with another intelligent species, a chance to learn, to grow, to expand our understanding of life in the universe. Some risks are worth taking. He turned to the bridge crew. Prepare for docking procedures. Let's welcome our new friends properly. As the two ships moved carefully toward each other, two species separated by billions of years of different evolution prepared to meet face to face. Neither knew what would come from this meeting, but both felt the weight of history upon them. On the Qualari ship, Commander Zetharel prepared his boarding party. Remember, he told them, these beings cross the void to help strangers. Whatever else we learn about them, we know this truth. They answered when no one else could hear us. That alone deserves our respect. The docking tube extended from the human ship horizon, connecting with the airlock of the Qualari vessel Eternal Light. Engineers from both ships worked together to make sure the connection was safe. They used hand signals and simple diagrams to communicate when their translation devices failed them. Captain Alan Parker stood at the human side of the airlock with Science Officer Linda Morris and Communications Officer Kevin West. They wore their formal uniforms but carried no weapons. This was Parker's decision, despite Security Chief Maria Flores's concerns. First impressions matter, Parker had told her. We came to help, not to threaten. The airlock door slid open with a soft hiss. There was a moment of tense silence. Then, 3 Qualari entered the human ship. Commander Zetharel led the way, followed by Science Officer Vrenki and Medical Officer Jalquin. The humans had seen the Qualari on screens, but seeing them in person was different. They stood about 7 feet tall, with 4 arms and blue-green exoskeletons that shimmered slightly in the light. Their large compound eyes seemed to take in everything at once. 2 antennae rose from their heads, moving gently as if feeling the air. The Qualari were just as curious about the humans. They had never seen beings with only 2 arms and such soft-looking skin. The fur on top of the humans' heads was especially strange to them. Parker stepped forward and raised his hand in greeting. Welcome aboard the Horizon, he said. The translation device on his uniform converted his words into the clicking and humming sounds of the Qualari language. Zetharel raised his upper right hand in response. We thank you for answering our call, he replied, his words converted to English. Few would travel so far for strangers. We heard someone needed help, Parker said simply. We couldn't ignore that. The 2 commanders looked at each other for a long moment. Then Zetharel did something unexpected. He bent his body forward in what the humans would later learn was a formal bow of deep respect. My crew and I owe you our lives, he said. We had accepted that we would die here far from home. Parker nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. Let's make sure that doesn't happen. We have a conference room prepared. We can discuss how best to help you. The humans led the Qualari through the corridors of the Horizon. Crew members stopped and stared as they passed. Most had never expected to see an alien being in their lifetime. Now there were 3 walking through their ship. In the conference room, displays showed technical information about both ships. Chief Engineer Paul Gonzalez was waiting for them. He had been studying the data shared by the Qualari. Please sit, Parker said, gesturing to the chairs that had been quickly modified to accommodate the Qualari's different body shape. Once everyone was seated, Parker began. So we understand that your quantum jump drive malfunctioned, sending you far from your planned course. Yes, Zetharel confirmed. Our drive works by creating a quantum field that moves the ship instantly from one point to another, but we need the quantum relay network to calculate safe jump coordinates. Out here, beyond the network, our jump went wrong. Your method is different from ours, Gonzalez said with interest. Our fold drive physically bends space around the ship. It requires enormous energy but doesn't need external relays. Vrenke leaned forward, his antennae twitching with excitement. This is fascinating. The theoretical principles are similar, but the application is completely different. For the next several hours, the engineers and scientists from both crews shared information about their technologies. Despite the language barriers, they found common ground in mathematics and physics. Here's what we think we can do, Parker said finally. Our fold drive can provide the energy your jump drive needs for repairs. Our engineer believes we can transfer power safely between our ships. Your offer is generous, Zetharel said, his mandibles moving in a gesture the humans couldn't yet read. But your ship is small. The energy transfer would leave you with little reserve power. We've calculated the risk, Parker said confidently. We can make it back to our nearest outpost, unreserved power. The Qualari officers clicked their mandibles together in quiet discussion. There is another problem, Vrenke said. Even with repairs, we cannot calculate a precise jump back to our territory without the relay network. The risk of another misjump would be high. That's where we might have a solution, Morris said. Our fold navigation system doesn't need external relays. We think we can adapt your jump calculations to use our method, allowing for a safer return. A hybrid system? Vrenke's compound eyes seemed to brighten. That could work in theory, but it would require sharing detailed knowledge of both technologies. And trust, added Parker quietly. Zetharel studied the human captain. In Qualari culture, sharing such technology would require years of diplomatic meetings and formal agreements. Yet these humans offered it freely, simply because they wanted to help. My crew and I accept your proposal, Captain Parker, Zetharel said after a moment of thought, and we offer our deepest thanks. When we return to the Galactic Alliance, we will tell them of humanity's actions here. And we'll tell Earth about the Qualari and the Alliance, Parker replied. This meeting happened by chance, but I believe it was also fortunate for both our species. The work began immediately. Human and Qualari engineers moved between the ships, sharing knowledge and adapting technologies. It wasn't always easy. The translation devices sometimes failed with technical terms. Cultural differences led to misunderstandings, but the shared goal, getting the Qualari home safely, kept everyone focused. It's amazing how quickly they learn, Gonzalez told Parker during a break. Their understanding of quantum mechanics is beyond anything we've developed. And they seem equally impressed with our fold drive, Parker replied. Vrenke called it elegantly simple, yet daring in concept. We're learning more in days than we might have discovered in decades of research, Morris added. This cooperation could advance human science by generations. As the work continued, the two crews began to form bonds that went beyond their technical collaboration. They shared meals, learning about each other's cultures and histories. The Qualari were fascinated by human music. The humans were amazed by Qualari art, created using all four arms simultaneously. On the fifth day, Gonzalez and his Qualari counterpart Pelthar announced that the power transfer was ready to begin. We'll start slowly, Gonzalez explained, to both commanders. The energy conversion needs to be carefully controlled. As the two ships connected their power systems, everyone watched the readings anxiously. This was the most dangerous part of the plan. If something went wrong, both ships could be damaged beyond repair. The lights on the horizon dimmed slightly as energy began flowing to the eternal light. On the Qualari ship, systems that had been dark for weeks began to come online again. It's working, Pelthar reported, his mandibles clicking rapidly in excitement. The quantum core is stabilizing. The two commanders watched as their crews accomplished what both had thought impossible just days before: a successful cooperation between species that had never known of each other's existence. Perhaps, Zetharel said quietly to Parker, this is the beginning of something more important than a rescue. Parker nodded. I believe you're right, Commander. This is just the beginning. 5 years had passed since the human ship Horizon first answered the distress call of the Qualari vessel Eternal Light. What began as a simple rescue mission had grown into something much bigger. Admiral Alan Parker, recently promoted after his successful first contact mission, stood on the observation deck of the newly built space station Harmony Point. Next to him was Ambassador Zeth Errol, once a stranded ship commander, and now the official Qualari representative to Earth. Look at them all, Parker said, gazing down at the main hall below. The huge room was filled with beings from 27 different species. The representatives of the Galactic Alliance mingled with human delegates. They were preparing for the signing ceremony that would make Earth the newest member of the Alliance. I never thought this would happen when we picked up your distress call, Parker admitted. Nor did I, replied Zethirel. His once dull exoskeleton now shone with the special paints that marked him as a high-ranking diplomat. The Alliance had existed for over 1,000 years with very little change. Your species has done in 5 years what others could not do in centuries. It was true. The combined drive technology created by human and Qualari engineers had changed space travel forever. It made parts of space that were once too far away now open for exploration and trade. Even more important was how humans approached galactic politics. Direct, practical, and not weighed down by old rivalries. This had broken through many diplomatic problems that had existed for hundreds of years. We just asked questions that no one had thought to ask before, Parker said modestly. You did more than that, Zethirel corrected him. You challenged old ideas. When the Trelixi said that trade routes through the Carcinian Nebula were impossible due to radiation, your engineers simply built better shields. When the Voloth threatened war over the boundary dispute in the Outer Rim, your diplomats invited their leaders to Earth for direct talks, something no Alliance species would have dared to do. Parker smiled. Sometimes being new to something has its advantages. It isn't just that, Zethirel insisted. It's something else. Something we had begun to lose after so many thousands of years of civilization. A willingness to try the impossible. When my crew and I were stranded, we accepted our fate because we knew that no help could possibly reach us, yet you came. Below them, Captain Samantha Wright, promoted after Parker's advancement, led the human diplomatic team into the Grand Chamber. Dr. Linda Morris, now famous for writing the first complete guide to Alliance species, walked close behind. The treaty will change everything, Parker said. Earth becomes the 28th member of the Alliance with all the benefits and responsibilities that brings. Yes, but more importantly, it formally establishes the Deep Space Rescue Initiative, Zethirel added, a joint fleet dedicated to answering distress calls from any vessel, regardless of species or politics. The announcement system chimed, indicating that the ceremony was about to begin. As they walked toward the diplomatic chamber, Zethirel paused. You know, after we were rescued, my leaders asked why I shared so much of our technology with an unknown species. I told them something that has since become famous in Alliance diplomatic circles. Oh? Parker raised an eyebrow. I said, any species that will cross 2 light-years of unknown space, risking their own survival to answer a stranger's cry for help, is a species we want as our ally, not our enemy. Parker laughed. That's very kind of you. It was simply logical, Zethirel replied, his mandibles clicking in amusement. As we've since learned, when humans decide something is the right thing to do, the word impossible merely becomes a challenge. The galaxy had grown old and careful, Admiral Parker. Perhaps it needed humanity's strange mix of compassion and daring more than any of us realized. The main hall of Harmony Point was the largest room ever built in space. Its ceiling was a clear dome that showed the stars above. In the center stood a round table made from materials donated by all 28 species, 27 members of the Alliance and humanity, about to join them. As Parker and Zethirel entered, the room grew quiet. Everyone turned to look at them. These 2 beings, one human, one Qualari, were the reason they were all here today. President Sofia Garcia of the United Earth Government stood at the table, ready to sign the treaty. Across from her stood Grand Counselor Recta of the Galactic Alliance. 5 years ago, President Garcia began. A human ship heard a call that traveled across the stars, a call that by all logic should never have been answered. Today we formalize the friendship that began with that simple act of compassion. Grand Counselor Recta raised all 4 of his hands in the formal greeting of the Alliance. For a millennium, the Alliance has grown slowly, carefully. We had begun to believe that we had reached the natural limits of our expansion. Then humanity arrived and showed us that limits only exist if we accept them. As the 2 leaders prepared to sign the historic document, Parker thought about the long journey that had led to this moment. When the horizon first detected that faint signal from the eternal light, they had simply been following the oldest rule of space travel: always answer a distress call. No one could have predicted it would lead to this. After the treaty was signed, ships all across Earth space and Alliance territory lit up their external lights in celebration. From orbit, the planets of both governments became ringed with tiny points of light, a physical demonstration of the new bonds between them. Later that night, at the formal reception, Parker found himself standing with Zetharel again, watching the celebrations. "What happens next?" Parker asked. "Now that the treaty is signed, I mean." Zetharel's compound eyes reflected the stars visible through the dome above. "The Alliance has mapped only about 8% of the galaxy. There are millions of stars we've never visited, billions of planets we've never seen. With your fold drive combined with our jump technology, those distances no longer seem so vast." "Exploration," Parker said with satisfaction. "That's what humans do best." "No," Zetharel corrected gently. "What you do best is care. You explore because you care about what's out there. You help because you care about those in trouble. Other species explore for resources or knowledge or power. Humans explore because you cannot bear not knowing what or who might need you." As the celebration continued around them, a message arrived from a distant patrol ship. A faint signal had been detected from an unexplored region of space. It might be nothing. It might be a natural phenomenon. But it might also be a call for help. Without hesitation, both Parker and Zetharel moved to respond. It was what they did now. It was what had brought their species together, and it was what would carry them forward into the vast unknown of the galaxy. Sometimes the most important journeys begin with the simplest of actions: answering when someone calls,